Hi everyone, and welcome to another Great Shouts fortnightly meeting recorded today on the 3rd of August. Every fortnight we come together to discuss a B2B marketing topic. We have a specialist in their field who gives a presentation for 15 to 20 minutes, and then we get to ask lots of questions and grilling questions at the end. We record all the sessions so people can drop in when they want to, and then I will post it out on YouTube and people can catch up when they want to. As I always kind of talk about the stats, we're up to kind of 120 people now, so it's a good amount of people. And I've heard good things in terms of people connecting with people that presented, so that's all good. Today, and I am your host, Ed Davidson. I'm a Fractional head of marketing. And today we've got Emma Westley, who is also a Fractional person, a Fractional CMO. So Emma, if you want to share your screen, I will let you share.
Thank you, Ed, and nice to see everybody. Can I now share? Yes, I can. So let's bring a few slides up. I'm going to keep them in this mode because for some strange reason, when I try and put it in presentation mode, my monitor doesn't like it. So apologies, but hopefully this is good enough. So yeah, I wanted to talk about what this fractional thing is that everybody's talking about. It seems to be this word that has sort of popped up over the past sort of 6 months, maybe a year. And it's probably what a lot of people already know, but it's got this name now. But I'm also going to talk a little bit about why it works and who it works for and the experience that I've had with it. So before getting into that, just a quick introduction. So I'm Emma. I'm originally from Ireland, then lived in the UK for a lot of years, university and career wise, and I currently live in France, and working remotely, obviously, for companies in the UK and the US. And I've been doing this fractional, or whatever it's called, since 2018. And I've worked with about over 30 B2B startups and small businesses doing either the fractional or consulting, because I do the consulting as well. In 2019, something that not a lot of people know is I launched my own marketing SaaS platform that failed spectacularly. But what I did with that was I took the logic and the methodology behind it and turned that into the service that I now deliver for startups and companies. Got over 20 years experience in B2B tech marketing, all B2B as well for my sins. And I've worked for the likes of HP, Accenture, Symantec, and many others. And being in France, one of the other things that I do is me and my husband run a 6-bed French gîte. For those that don't know what a gîte is, it's just like a self-catering apartment type thing, although with 6 bedrooms. And that's keeping us very busy at the moment, obviously. Weekends are completely gone with doing changeovers and all sorts of things. And then when I do get a bit of spare time, topics that interest me are things like neuroscience. I love traveling, love a good hit session, and one for Rin. Also love board games with the Westley family. So just a bit of a segue into what this fractional thing is all about. We all know there's so much going on in the job market at the moment. I don't think I've ever sort of been through such a transformational job market as we're seeing certainly the past year. Lots of layoffs, but equally lots of vacancies. There's a strange sort of dichotomy going on at the moment with companies not being able to fill their vacancies, but at the same time, lots of people losing jobs, being made redundant, whatever. Also, the shift in what work means. So, saying goodbye to the traditional 9 to 5, remote working, things like 4-day weeks or 9-day fortnights, that sort of thing. And then, as I mentioned at the start, this fractional thing that has popped up recently, a lot more established in the US at the moment. They seem to have been doing it for a lot longer. It's a very sort of, even companies know to talk about fractional, so it's a much more established term there. it seems to be gaining a bit more traction in the UK and Asia and Europe at the moment, where there's a bit of a debate over what it actually means, and I think, to be honest, that's sort of secondary to like what it actually does. Although it does help to define, obviously, what fractional is. So along those lines, I've put here what my sort of interpretation is at the moment on what a fractional CMO is, certainly. So what I do for a couple of companies at the moment. So it's an experienced marketing exec, typically hired on a part-time basis, to provide high quality marketing advice, strategy oversight, and usually some sort of team management or team mentorship. It's slightly different to traditional consultancy because it's usually more medium to long term. Although I find, for example, that I start with some sort of consultancy project and then it turns into the fractional engagement, the more medium to long term piece. The other thing that I find can involve a degree of execution, either that I'm doing myself or that I'm bringing other freelancers or other agencies into support. As I said before, there's a little bit of a debate over where fractional sits in the sort of chain of command, and that usually it's a little bit more senior. And then the big bonus, obviously, for companies employing fractionals is that they don't have to cover any overheads. So even though it is long term and it's part time, it's that, you know, the company is still not having to pay for things like holiday or equipment or pension contributions, anything like that. This table on the bottom half of the slide is quite useful. This is from Karina Mickley, who runs the Fractionals United community, which is a great community, got going started this year, where she differentiates between the different types of non-permanent roles and what they mean. And as you can see, that the biggest difference is sort of between fractional and consultant. And there's again a bit of a debate at the moment over, well, how can you be this fractional person but be, for example, embedded in the team or be managing the team? And I think that's a bit of a mindset shift that's happening. Certainly the people who are doing it get it, because we can still be embedded in the team and part of a team. You know, the companies that I work with, for example, I've got email addresses under their company names. I attend their leadership meetings, their company meetings, but I'm not an employee. So it's this, you know, I think it's taking a bit of time, especially for companies, to get used to this, and certainly senior execs as well, getting used to this sort of, well, hold on a minute, but you're not an employee. So it might just take a bit of time to sort of bed in and for people to get comfortable with it. The other thing is the difference between fractional and interim. These seem to be a little bit interchangeable at the moment in certain circumstances, but there are those that say no, they're very different. Interim being full-time, but on a defined period of time. So like a maternity cover, for example, could be interim, whereas fractional is definitely not full-time. So thinking a little bit, or just diving into sort of why it works, my personal experience is that it works really well for startups, scale-ups, and SMEs. And that's because of a number of reasons. Some of them you can see here. So things like the focus elements. Startups and scale-ups are renowned for trying to do everything all at once and not having that focus, and maybe having people certainly in marketing, where I come across it, that aren't able to sort of push back on a senior team and say, no, this is what we need to focus on. So that element is really important. So getting startups, scale-ups to focus on certain things. Fractionals can also bring in a network of contacts. I've brought in, you know, on my engagements, I've brought in numerous agencies, numerous freelancers that will, you know, for specific things, because I've got that network that I can tap into very often. But at the same time, we're able to sort of step back. I saw it called on LinkedIn on a post, the objective advocate, which I really liked. So that gets across that idea that you are embedded in a company, you're their advocate, you're their champion, but you're objective, you can still step back and sort of not get too involved in the politics and the weeds of things in the day-to-day. So just as an example of this, I've been working with a US-based company for almost 2 years now, actually. It's the time has flown by, and I've been doing their sort of fractional marketing. And as I said before, I've got an email address in that company. I attend their town halls, their leadership meetings, all of the stuff that's on their time. But I'm not full time. I'm, maybe half of the week or so that I work there. So I can dip in and out, depending on what the focus is each quarter. I can make sure that the team knows what they're doing, what they're sort of focused on. I do admittedly, keep my email and my messenger open all the time for them, so that if there is something pops up, I can jump on it. But equally, I'm doing that for other clients. So I've still got my email open for another client. And if I need to jump there, I can. It's that just sort of switching between the different clients that has to happen all the time. And I think where I find the biggest sort of benefit is really on that focus part, because the limited time that I have with the company imposes the focus. So it imposes the focus for the team members that I manage, but also for the company. So I have the weight to push back on other members of the team there to say, look, is this really important that we do this? Is this in line with the goals that we're trying to achieve? Or is this just, a distraction that we can just leave for the moment, come back to next quarter and see if it's still a priority? And that's not something that full-time people necessarily have that luxury of being able to do. Whereas as a fractional, you can say that you've got the sort of the perspective to be able to do that. And so that got me thinking about the sort of different people that are involved in this fractional relationship, and what the benefits are for each person. You can see it in the middle there. Everybody loves a Venn diagram as well, don't we? So in the middle are the F words, so flexibility and focus. I haven't mentioned focus enough yet, but I think for the company, it is really, obviously there's the cost benefit. There's a huge cost benefit. They're not covering any overheads, and it's massive, especially for that's the startup, the scale up company that are often tight in budget. They also get a balance of strategy and execution a lot of the time, either, as I say, with the network of other people that can be pulled in, or fractionals do tend to sort of get our hands dirty quite a lot of the time as well. At the same time, though, and I think this is important, is there's a point of consistency. So if I think to when I've done consulting projects and I've come in and I've said to a team, right, where can I access all these documents, or your reports on a campaign that you've done last year or whatever, and they'll go, oh, I don't know where it is, or we're not quite sure what happened, or somebody else is running it and we don't really know what the ins and outs were. So with a fractional, because it is a longer term engagement, there is that point of consistency. So if I bring in other consultants, I can say, this is what we did last year, and this is why it didn't work, or why it did work, or something. And there's all that history there. It's not lost, for example. And also fractionals are thinking obviously about things like process documentation, or, infrastructure setup that will need to be there for for someone, whoever is the next person that comes along. For the fractional, obviously, lots of flexibility, lots of variety. Although saying that, I think I probably work longer hours now than a lot of permanent jobs that I did in the past. It's just that I work differently. I love for example, being able to share insights across clients. So, what I'm doing in one client, I can step back and go, I wonder if that would work for another client I'm working with. I also don't feel guilty when I need to do my own sort of BD or L&D time. If I want to go and research a tool, I will just go and do it. And I don't feel like, I'm working on, I'm not working on someone's time. And I've also not got all my eggs in one basket. So like any sort of consulting or flexible work, you're a bit more sort of spread out. I've also seen real benefits for the marketing team as well. So this, in particular, this US client that I work with, their team have really come on in like such a very short space of time, from being quite junior to having a lot of sort of independence. And I think that's something that might get missed in that fractional piece, is that actually the team have a lot of autonomy. So, because I'm not there all the time, they can go off and try out things. It's only marketing. We're not saving lives. So they can go and try things out. And if it doesn't work, whatever, just, fix it. But they don't feel like there's someone sort of watching them or, checking in on them all the time, which I think is quite important. And again, they've got that element of focus. And then the other thing that works for pretty much everybody in the relationship is that try before you buy. I think we all know that, an interview, even a consulting project, you can't necessarily tell whether the fit is there properly. Like, even in a consulting engagement, you're not really getting into working with the company. And so when you get into a company properly, either fractional or full-time, you then go, okay, this is what it's really like. These are the things that are going on behind the scenes. And so you have got that out. You can sort of say, well, actually, this is not what I expected. And again, you don't feel as guilty as if you're in a full-time position and you're having to leave it. So that, that works for both, or for all parties in the relationship. So yeah, I mean, that's been my experience so far. I mean, I personally love the way that it works. I worked in a lot of agencies when I was permanent. So I sort of got a taste for it because it was, working across lots of different clients. But this is even more flexible, even more independent. And as I say, you've got that sort of time to step back and think, well, is this right for the company that I'm working for? And you have got a bit more weight to come back to that company and say, actually, I think we should shift this way or that way. And I honestly think that it's going to pick up, get a lot more traction in the coming years because of all the other things that are happening around remote work and flexible work. Getting the over 50s back into work, although why we keep calling it over 50s, because 50 is not old. But all of these sorts of things are sort of combining to make this sort of fractional engagement a lot more, just a lot more realistic, a lot more beneficial for everyone involved. And yeah, hopefully it will continue, and more companies will certainly pick it up in Europe in the coming years. So that was 20-ish minutes.
Bang on.
Any questions?
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Emma. And I love the objective advocate. I love that kind of concept.
Yeah,
being outside.
Can't lay claim to that, but
yeah. Normally I have loads of questions and I just go through mine, but we've got so many good questions here. So let's go through the guys' questions on the call. So Tristan asked, when persuading a startup founder or a CEO to go fractional versus an FTE, what are the main pushbacks you see, and how do you overcome them?
I think the main pushback at the moment is still that mindset.
Just one thing, Emma, do you want to stop showing your screen so that we can just see everyone in the glory there?
There we go.
Perfect. Thanks.
Where was I? Yeah, so I think it's the mindset of, you're either a consultant or you're full-time. The other aspect that I've seen, especially with startups and scale-ups, is the investor pressure behind the companies saying, well, no, you've got to have a full-time CMO, a full-time VP or whatever. And that I think is just going to take a bit of time to iron out. There will be those companies that will be a little bit more forward thinking and realize, maybe if they've worked remotely for a long time so far, they're a bit more like, yeah, I can see this working. So yeah, there's certainly a lot of companies at the moment that still don't get it. And I think how I've tried to position it is, well, it's not necessarily for everybody. If you want someone sat there all day, every day, then fair enough, go and find a full time. But if you're more flexible, and also if you're just, if you're willing to give it a go, that's the other thing, because there's no real sort of commitment there. So either party can pull out. There's no harm in trying it. And as I say, if we can, in Europe or the UK, if we can maybe draw on the US experience to show how successful it is there. As I say, one of my main clients is in the US because they're a lot more accustomed to it.
Makes sense.
Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Yeah, Tristan's giving you a nice thumbs up there.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Cool. So John asked, when you're fractional somewhere, are you just as accountable for the outcomes as you would be if you're an FTE? And how does that work in practice?
Yes, definitely still accountable for the outcomes. And I've got a specific example here that I'm thinking here. So it's quite interesting. So obviously I don't get bonused because, I'm not a full-time, but the team that I'm managing are bonused. And so if they don't hit those goals, they don't get the bonus. And so I feel like emotionally involved in that, insofar as, right, I've got to help them hit their goals so that they can get their bonus. So in that respect, I am still owning those same goals. I'm still accountable for them. And one of the good things about that sort of focus element is you can impose that on a company too. Like, it's the best way to describe this. So the way I like to work is quite rapid and quite sort of delivery focused. And I find a lot of other fractionals are like that, and the businesses that are attracted to fractional are like that too. So you can almost come in on that basis and say, right, these are the goals that we're hitting each quarter. And if we don't hit those, I'm going to walk away because of, I'm not doing anything for your company, and you're not doing anything for me, so to speak. So yeah, if you can set that tone from the start and set, like, quarterly goals, quarterly objectives, numbers, whatever those need to be, and then if they're not being hit for whatever reason, you're still working as a team to fix that, but you're very much accountable for it, and you're also keeping the company accountable for it too, the rest of the team.
As it's finding that right fit, isn't it? As you say, where you're both aligned. Yeah. Cool. So Tom asked, how do you define the scope of work as a fractional CMO? Deliverable based or day rate?
So this is where I find going in on like a consulting project to start with is a good way in. So obviously I would price the consulting project, on deliverable, well, sort of combination of deliverable and time, knowing how much time things will take. But in that, I can gauge how the team works, and it's simple things like, how long is it going to take to get approvals done on certain things? Like that can really eat up time. Or how long is it going to take to do meetings? Or if I do a meeting with this team, am I then going to need to do 5 other meetings with the rest of the team? That sort of thing. So all of that will then factor in. So then I can say, right, I think that's a X days commitment per week. And then it then moves to the day rate. as I say though, what I don't do, and this is different to maybe other fractionals, I don't say to a company, right, it's only a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Those are the days that I work. I say it's 2 days and I'm flexible throughout that week. And I'm just very, very disciplined with, sticking to that time. And if something, obviously, if there's urgent things come in that have to be dealt with, that's fine. But equally, I can push back and say, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to do that next week because, I'm like at the limit this week, for example. And I find that works at the moment. Maybe I'm lucky with the clients I have being respectful of that as well. Because I've certainly had ones in the past that haven't been quite as respectful.
I suppose it's like the kind of cheeky follow-up question to that in terms of my experience of it. I suppose it's doing both. Sometimes I do prefer the days because everyone kind of knows Ed's working on this day. That's when the kind of questions come in. If you leave it up to a period of time, then it's just a lot of scope creep and nobody quite knows when to ask or when you've got something else on or there's a time. But I have been in situations where things move so quickly within a business. If you're just one day at that time, then things have changed that much that you need to catch up, and so it doesn't work. So I can see both. Cool. Rin's asked a couple of questions. So she's got, what skills does a fractional need?
The second one is the one that Tom asked, so it's all good.
Okay, all right, no worries. So the main one is, what skills does a fractional need? Can you come from a niche specialism background, or do you need to have more of a general marketing lead?
I think it probably would depend on the company that you're working for, whether it would suit to have a niche or to be more generalist. My experience, though, the majority of companies I've done this for, it is better being a generalist, or at least having that T, the T shape where you sort of know a little bit about everything and then maybe a bit more about one area. But I always bring in other people with things that I don't know what I'm talking about. If it's SEO or technical SEO or maybe something a bit more design led or brand led, or like marketing automation stuff, I'll pull those people in. I can probably talk a good game at the exact level about what needs to be accounted for or roughly how long these things should take, but I won't necessarily know the detail of it. So then I'll bring in certain people. So I would say my experience is definitely a bit more of a generalist, but with maybe some sort of a specialism, or at least a history of a specialism in some area.
Cool, great stuff. I tried to keep these to time, as I always say. So, and I know other people have got things booked in. So Emma, thanks so much. It's a fascinating topic, and hopefully Fractional will come thick and fast in the UK as well as in the US. So thanks a lot, everyone, and see you again next fortnight.
That was great. Thanks.
Thanks,
Emma.
Ed. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.